some familiar faces coming back, and we are finding that this is just a very fun format of engaging both founders and investors, which is on a very conversational level. So we're just going to speak about some interesting topics today. Everyone that is here, I'm going to let you jump in with any questions you may have for any of the ladies that we have here on the panel. And I will be here to moderate it all. I'll have some questions as well to jump in. But before we get to the questions now, obviously since we have such an interesting mix of ladies here who all come from the investment world, but everyone has gotten there from a different path and are representing different angles of the investment industry. I think it will be very interesting if we just take a minute or so with each lady and get a little bit of an introduction. And I see that Jen is ready with the microphone and everything. So Jen, over to you. Give us a little bit of your background. How did you end up in investment, and how did you navigate getting there in a very man-dominated world? I know it's a big question in a couple of minutes, but do what you can.
That's going to take a while, but I'll try to keep it short. Hi everyone, I'm Jen Byrne. I've been angel investing since 2012. Basically, when I left the corporate world, I was free to sort of start doing that kind of thing. But I started my career in media, then telco, and then financial services. Started out working in Rome, Italy at a satellite TV company, came back and worked for CBS Television, then a startup, then Verizon, then American Express, then launched my own company called Kesne to bridge the gap between corporates and startups, then launched Female Founders in FinTech, InsurTech Global Accelerator, reaching 78 countries. At the height of COVID, decided I would go in the venture fund direction and joined as an LP and a venture partner in 2 venture funds. I think the one probably more relevant today here is Grit Capital, grit.vc. And we invest in pre-seed and seed stage companies, very founder focused, and we're focused on fintech, e-com, media, and a little bit of digital health, really focused on platform ecosystem, so kind of a marketplaces, B2B2C. And I have a lot of experience and knowledge to share, having worked with hundreds of female founders and being a female founder myself, and the challenges around raising capital. I'm sure we'll get into that, but I'll let the rest of the group introduce themselves.
Thank you. That's worth an applause, I feel like.
Hi, my name is Serebryany, and I am a 2X founder. My first company got sold to a publicly traded company at the end of 2015. And then being a founder, I embarked on another journey. Unfortunately, I signed a non-compete, so I couldn't get to the same industry, so I started a company in a field that is unfamiliar for me, and I successfully closed that company, and that little startup really taught me so much that I kind of propelled me into the world of startups and into investment, angel investment, and I started investing from 2017. I'm with HTC, Health Tech Capital, which is in Silicon Valley, and that's primarily health tech, and also with Gain Angels. And since then, I also became a coach because I'm a board member, and I'm a board member and I'm a mentor. And I figured that sometimes it's difficult to tell founders what to do. Sometimes you have to lead them to what they want to do, and with open-end questions. And so I kind of split my time between investments and coaching startup founders, particularly with focus with female founders, because this is something that I'm very passionate about. All right.
Wonderful. Hi everyone. First of all, thank you so much for having me here, and I'm very pleased to be in such a brilliant company of brilliant ladies. And let's give it up to this wonderful man for Byrne. His team, obviously. Thank you so much. My name is Victoria Silchenko, and my educational background as an economist. I used to work at the Milken Institute in my early days with Michael Milken as an economist. Before I was working with Dr. Arthur Laffer. If anyone heard about Laffer curve, that's basically the inventor himself. And on the side, I started to do my own consulting business. I always thought that numbers don't have an accent, so I've been doing also financial models and company valuations. Writing eventually business plans, and so I am just telling you guys I'm on the side of founders, and that's what made me to write this 500 pages book. This is my baby. Basically, it's and some people tell me that, oh, Victoria, yeah, of course, like Ph.D. in economics, of course it must be like a really big book. No, guys, I swear to God, every sentence has a value here. It was supposed to be actually 3 books, so I just decided to basically get everything in one. And the reason is, to write this book, I just in my wildest dreams, I never thought that I would write a book in a actually third language, right? I'm Russian originally, my second language is actually German, and English is my third language, and I'm still learning every day, quite frankly. But I was so frustrated with so much misconceptions among entrepreneurial community, especially about venture capital. So, as a consequence, I was very honest about venture capital. One of my venture capitalist friends actually blocked me on Facebook after reading my book, which, I thought it's a good compliment. So, because, real venture capitalists, with not inflated ego, really liked the book. And, I'm actually working right now with, I think it's the #1 performance, in terms of performance venture capital fund called Union Growth Venture Partners. They are based in North Carolina. I'm representing them here in California. They are later stage, basically guys that invest in companies with traction. But the beauty is that all the partners are also angel investors themselves, and they love the entrepreneurial world, love to support founders who are solving big problems. I've been actually interviewing them for the past 2-3 days, telling them, guys, what should I communicate? Yeah, just solve big problems, and we'll talk about this later. So as an angel investor, I just started my angel investment journey last year, and I have to admit, it is a completely different game when you're basically on another side, because before I was like, how come you don't want to invest in this beautiful company? And here I am sitting on the other side. Oh my God, wow, you guys sure what you actually do? I don't know, but you're nice guys, Keep in touch with stuff. It's completely different, and that's what I keep telling founders. Don't get offended, just put yourself in the shoes. So now I'm in the shoes of investors, like, oh my God, this is... So, and the third part that, and guys, I also professor, I can talk a lot, so you just tell me when I should shut up. I teach entrepreneurial finance in a few schools. And lastly, I'm basically very, very excited about crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding, and especially, and I am, very surprised that it is still rather unknown venture for, route for, looking for capital. So I'm happy to also share, my knowledge through discussions, so and everything is in this book. So basically, I would say it's supposed to be, 3 books: venture capital, crowdfunding, and how the finance really works. So, highly recommend. The reason that I did, because I could not find one good, unbiased book that would say that this is.
And I can vouch for this book. It's very, very good. I know Brian loves it as well. We're all DOJO fans of
Yeah, I've helped with marketing. I'm good at analyzing things and I'm good at researching. I totally should have marketed that more, and but thank you for the word of mouth.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Victoria.
Well, hey everyone. My name is Jenny Ta, and for the first time, I feel tiny sitting in front with these ladies up here. Could we all give them a round of applause, please? After powerhouse up here. And of course, we won't be here today without the man himself, Brian McMahon. I've known him since he launched this place, and I've seen nothing but growth here. I shared just a couple days ago when I was here as well. That man there, he has done more for startups in this area and his friends than we do for him. I mean, he has such a huge heart, and not to mention, he has also done a lot of things for me. And so I speak wholeheartedly about this man, and he's great in and out. So, myself personally, I'm just gonna give maybe 3 minutes. I am a 3X founder. I am probably one of the very few women, if not Asian women, I'm probably the only one, to have founded and ran 2 investment banking firms. An investment banking firm, as you know, is like a small Goldman Sachs. You gotta have the security licenses, the Series 7, 63. When you own a broker-dealer, which is another term, you gotta have the Series 24, you gotta have the Series 4 principal, you gotta have the Series 27, which is the FinOp, and then you got a municipal, yada, right? So I started running my first broker-dealer when I was just 20 years old, okay, without giving away my age. And then that got acquired, and then I signed a non-compete, and I had to go away for 3 years because the company that acquired my first one was local. And then I launched the second one. Just when I launched the second broker-dealer, a group out in Dallas, Texas, knocked on my door and acquired me again, right? One thing we learn in the entrepreneurship industry is, I learned this from Mark Cuban, right? And that is, don't fall in love with your investment. Every investment or every company has a number, right? And if somebody hit that number, even you just barely open your door, sell it, right? Keep your heart, that emotion, fall in love with a human being, a soul, okay? But not a thing. I mean, I've learned that. So that's why I'm a 3X. When it's right, boom, bye. My last X was within 15 months, I got out, because why? You get out, you lock in your cash, you go find something else, right? I mean, that's my motto. So I do live down in Newport Beach, Orange County. Every time Brian calls me, I drive up here, it takes about an hour, and help him out. This area is great. Currently, I am on my 4th and my 5th company. So my fourth is actually Web3VCfunds.com, and that basically I lead a pool, P-O-O-L, a pool of funds that's about $25 million. They specifically wanted to invest in Web3. Now, specifically Web3. The 5th company, I have not shared this yet. Brian knows because I was sharing it with a very close niche group of friends in January when when he was out to save my ASS. Let's just say it that way. He's a great man. So that one, I'm still, it's in AI and Web3 combined. Let's just say it that way. I'm not ready to share that yet, but we're on beta testing. So that's my 5th company, my 5th baby. So along the way, I mentor startups, a lot of them around here. Invest in startups. Usually I write checks anywhere between 10,000, 25,000 within the last 6 to 7 years. And I'm gonna be very honest with you. A lot of those, they kind of had wings and it flew away. If you know what I mean. Because at the end of the day, even the biggest guys in Silicon Valley, right? Sequoia, A16Z, they lose 92% of their investment, right? But that's in the startup ecosystem, right? So if you're in startup, you gotta take hits, right? And if you hear anybody out there investing in startups and if they make 10 out of 10, they're an effing liar. Okay, that's just all it is. So I will stop there, and we're here to answer any questions that anyone has. And thank you so much.
I'm going to pass this mic around, so whenever you have a question, you raise your hand and I will jump over to you. I'm going to give you a little bit of a head start to think about some good questions to throw in there. So I'm going to kick us all off with the first question. And I know that we have a lot of founders here in the audience, and I think that everyone here will benefit from hearing what do you know today that you wish that you had known when you started your first company? And we can pass that along with...
Before we start, the Q&A will be with
I'll take care of it, yes.
Yeah, okay. No, I just wanted to say this is my, my last basically copy of my book I have, this one. So let's do this. Maybe the best question, the most interesting question, right? Someone who will ask the best question, so the book is yours.
I like that.
I was actually thinking that, maybe I just should do like an auction, right? Who gives more money? Because, we're in a capitalistic system.
I like it. Everything gets a prize, right? Yeah, just like the best question.
I have an idea. Do you have books for sale?
Yeah.
How much per book?
On Amazon it costs
$38. Okay. I will buy 5 books from you and I'll give it out. So she's offering one, right, for the best question. So I will buy 5 books from you and 5 more books will be offered to you guys for the question, right?
Okay, I haven't mentioned that I just ordered 100 books coming next week. So if anyone can join this lovely ladies, so let's go.
We're making the issue here small. Exactly what's going to happen. Okay. Oh, and we hear that we're selling more books. Eli from Reichler law firm are also purchasing a couple of books to the audience in here today. What a big night for you!
It is also digital, guys. There is also a digital version for just $9. And honestly, okay, to tell you the truth, the first book I read in a digital format was my own book. So I can't read books in a digital format. So, but some people can, and the beauty of having actually digital format, besides the fact that it's very fast delivery and it's cheap, right? It's $9. So I made sure that every company I mentioned, venture fund, hedge fund, I've done actually good job for you guys. So it's clickable, it will be like reading and it's like, okay, this company, that. So you actually click and the websites are there, this crowdfunding platform, or this company, or this guy's raised this money, go on the website, read that, get inspired, that's basically also the beauty of having digital work, I guess, all over.
Digital also. Great. So let's dig in with the questions. And Emily, do you have something that you feel like you know very well today that would have benefited you to know when you started your first company?
Well, my guess is that build a company with you in mind, and meaning that try to understand what exactly that you want, and based on this, how do you want to play it? Basically, are you going to exit, or it's a lifetime business, or what is it that you're playing, and how funding for this company is going to be looking for you? Because if it's a lifetime business, then venture funding is probably not your thing. If that's something that you're really passionate about, that's also quite different. So I always say that I wish, I look back and I wish maybe I would have structured things a little bit different. We did really well with the sale of the company, but it took us quite a while. And now in the world where we live in, we also need to understand, again, put yourself in the shoes of what exactly that you want to do, not what investors are telling you to do, not what everybody is telling you to do, but what is it you want. And so that would be my advice.
And did you fall in love with your company, or did you also have a number?
It was kind of a love-hate situation, and I loved it at certain points, and I hated myself at other points, because being a founder is hard. It's very hard. It's very lonely, and there's nobody that, you cannot complain. There's nobody above you, there's nobody below you, because you're not going to complain to your employees. You're not going to complain to your bankers. You're not going to complain to the venture fund. So it's a lonely journey. And so that's why your own awareness is so important.
Thank you. And Jen, you've been working with so many female founders over the past years. What do you think, what have you seen has been the big lack in knowledge when starting your first company for these women?
There's so many things that even I learned running my own company, but I think with any company, I think it comes down to the people. You can have the best product in the world, but if you don't have the right team structure, motivation, aligned interests, and I guess equal amount of passion and dedication, the best product and technology in the world is not going to succeed. I think that goes, it was true for my company and any female founder that I've worked with. From a fundraising standpoint, the patterns that I saw and still see are that unfortunately women founders are raising less capital at lower valuations. Unfortunately, that's still the case. We went from 2.2% of venture capital and went backwards down to 1.9%. So unfortunately, the pandemic was not a good thing statistically for female founders. So, but even pre-pandemic, what I observed was women founders weren't raising the same amount. They weren't asking for the same amount, and they were asked a lot of questions that their male counterparts were not asked. So risk mitigation questions versus how can this become $1 billion business? So we observed that over and over and over, and so we tried to help female founders build their confidence with addressing those questions and then pivoting back to, well, this is why it's a $100 million business, and sort of coaching them on not being shy to ask for the money that they really think they need to scale the business, because if not, what happens is they can't hit those milestones, so they only raised X, and so it's a downward spiral. So a lot of our coaching was around not being afraid to ask for the amount, standing firm in terms of your valuation, and also like building your network. A lot of our female founders just didn't have the right networks to ask for money, and so we spent a lot of time opening doors both for customers and for investors.
How do you build those networks?
Yeah, I mean that's still the challenge, right? So you have to step outside of your comfort zone, no matter where you come from, I guess. And I think build relationships through various channels where you're adding value. You're not just showing up to ask for money. So I think it's a slow process. It probably takes a decade to build your network, but I see founders getting super creative in how they open doors. They add value by providing thought leadership content. They offer to help in some way, and you start building a relationship before you need money. And then by the time it comes time, they've gotten to know you, they understand your vision, and they're more apt to listen to the pitch, I would say. But I think it's also incumbent upon male investors and male founders to also interact a bit more. I found that it's great that female founders help each other and female investors help female founders, but I think we all need to do a better job of really interlinking communities, because with my female founder program, I made sure that men were involved. So it was like, are you sure we can be involved? And I said, no, you have to be involved as mentors, as judges, as coaches. So I think that will help change the network if we just try to not silo groups as much as we've been doing, and really create a welcoming environment where people mix in different circles. Because if not, you stay within your same network, then nothing's really going to change. So anyway, I'll stop there.
It's good advice. I don't see any hands so far in the air. We got a first question here.
Hi there. I noticed with interest that you specify equity crowdfunding as an area of interest. What surprises me is it seems to be a total contradiction to VC. In other words, I happen to be in the equity crowdfunding space with NextPitch.tv, and which, by the way, is great for female founders. More like 25% get funded. But what I don't understand is how it seems to be a contradiction. Can you explain that to me?
Contradiction in which way?
In the sense that equity crowdfunding ultimately is in the startup's favor, generally, while VC funding certainly is not. The important part is more that if you're in VC, there's nothing wrong with that. But it seems as if equity crowdfunding, if anything, in the future may lead to a launch.
Oh my God, this is, how can I make it shorter? Thank you so much for the question, I love it. And, again, that was the main reason that I decided to write a book, because, when you go to events like that, and I also used to be on the board for basically 6 years for the whole tour, on the board of LAVA, Los Angeles Venture Association. I'm sure you guys probably heard about it, and if you haven't, so please go to lava.org or lava.com. Yeah, they do a lot of events, and basically, 10 years ago when I just joined the organization, I was one of very few women, and I definitely was the only woman with an accent. So basically, I launched the group called Global Lava, and we would meet, every month, and I even come up with a motto, Global Lava, think outside the States. So not like outside the box, but outside the States. And by the way, my book, I'm saying don't think outside the box. There is no box, right? So that's like another thing. So in terms of back to your question. What really was bugging me, even like through Lava, and when I think like here is the thing, guys. The first-time founders almost have no chance to get VC money. That's just and again there are like more VCs right now, micro VCs, and some guys like almost like more like family offices. But here is the thing: most of them are looking for entrepreneurs with the traction and with the traction of exit. So when I spoke, for example, with a few VCs, the past literally 2-3 days, and asking them, guys, okay, well, I'm sure that my audience will be. Are there any people here who had an exit? Okay, the one, two. Okay, well, you're an investor, so. We speak about founders here. Yeah, okay. So I knew that most of my audience will not have distraction of the exit. And I asked, guys, what do you suggest to the first-time founders? The answer was, we don't know. So here comes equity crowdfunding. So equity crowdfunding basically where everyone can invest. Okay. So do you guys know what accredited investors are? Yeah, accredited investors, right? So basically, in order to invest in a startup in this country, you have to be accredited investor, which means that you have to have a certain level of income, 200 if you're single, 300 if you have a family, and a liquid net worth of at least like 1 million. And when I say liquid net worth, so if you live in 1 million house, it doesn't count. So you have to have. So basically, when you look at the numbers, there are only 8 million plus people in this country that satisfy this particular criteria. So now you have to understand, so how many emails these people are getting and how much choice they also have, right? I mean, when I started to be an angel investor last year, I could not believe it. Sometimes I would get like 100 emails, a day. Like, I was like literally overwhelmed, and I have really I'm founder myself, right? I found a consulting company. Also was running conference for 6 years. So I'm like part with the founder, but here I am, and I hate to say no with all these people. So we need to understand the difference between venture capital as asset class and equity crowdfunding. It's like two completely different things. So venture capital are working with institutional investors, and so they have a certain criteria that it's very hard to follow pretty much any mortal business. So less like in this country there are 400 to 500,000 companies launched every year. When I said this number, it's basically companies that hire other people. So more or less new businesses. So, and on average, only literally more than 1,000 companies get venture capital. This is less than, this is like 0.2% of the companies. Yet we only keep talking about venture capital for whatever reason. So my book basically, and I have another thing. I have over 900 sources in my book. So every sentence, every number you see, you will have basically data linked to that. So the question is, how many companies can satisfy the appetite of VCs that basically, I don't know, I think you mentioned, I don't remember who from ladies mentioned that 90% of VC portfolios finish. So the companies finish. So they have a portfolio approach. Right? We founders, we don't have a portfolio approach. We have only one company, one shot. That's like the biggest difference. So VCs require IRR of 40%, or they want you to go from 1 million to 50 million in like a couple of years. It's not exactly that greedy. I mean, some of them are.
You can almost write a book about this.
But yeah, it's not exactly that greedy, but they have to also make up for all the previous losses. So with equity crowdfunding, it's a bit different. So we don't really have this appetite. So we still want to make up losses, but it's more like angel investing. So you invest as much as you can lose. Right? It's almost, because I don't think, right, and you mentioned that, I don't think that we investing. I've been actually doing equity crowdfunding at the platform, if you guys don't know, befunder.com. That's like my favorite. I think they're leaders and the market. So I obviously didn't make any money. I kept telling myself, okay, this is for educational purpose. There was no exit in equity crowdfunding yet, but also there is equity crowdfunding. It's like 2 equity crowdfunding right now, 2 types. There is equity crowdfunding for accredited investors, as they call angel investors done online. Like for example, ourcrowd.com. Check it out. They have beautiful projects. I mean, if you want to just see and get inspired, and maybe get in, at some point or right now into, in angel investor. So they've had a few exits, but also there is like equity crowdfunding for, mortals who are not, accredited investors. So we, at this point, we don't have still, any exits. So, but the metrics are very different from, VC capital. So I don't think it's, they're contradicting to each other. It's just different. So, we have, we have healthy food, we have, orange juice, and then we have apple, and then we have, I don't know, avocado. Who is better? They just, they basically serve a different purpose. So VCs basically looking pretty much 100% for outside returns for highly scalable companies, for very big time total addressable marketplace. So unless like you are targeting your target market, 1 billion, you probably don't want even VC. And then another thing is that you also need to be.
Wrap this up in the next minute, and then we're going to see who else has a question to.
Okay, yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, I told you that. Tell me when I should shut up. I can talk about this until next weekend.
I was going to jump in. Something I wanted to mention that might be helpful to founders. Doesn't matter male, female, whether. But one thing I learned recently, because I helped a founder with this, is the importance of having a really helpful advisory board. So he was pre-seed stage, and he thought, I just said, let's sit down and map out what skills and networks are we missing to make you successful, and that was a game changer. We got the former CEO of E-Trade to come on board. That opened, you can only imagine how many doors. We got another guy who helped us get, SEC approval, because it's a fintech. The other advisor, former, head of marketing at TaskRabbit, understands two-sided marketplaces. Anyway, the point is, it's never too early. I think just surround yourself with people that will expand the network and help you get to that approval or product market fit. And he had to get a little equity, but you know what? He probably saved 18 months and I don't know how much money. So that was just one thing that I've even learned as an advisor, is really setting that up can set you up for success.
I wanted to add real quick, 2 to 3 minutes. This is an area that I specialize in, and this is very important. She mentioned about accredited investor, okay? Most startups require accredited investors to invest. That is absolutely correct. But there is this thing that's called regulation crowdfunding, which is Reg CF. Now, Reg CF was under President Obama. Prior to Obama, the maximum you can raise, anyone can raise, is $1.07 million. Through President Obama, that amount was raised to $5 million in March of 2021. Now, what is the difference with regulation crowdfunding? Another term you may recognize is called Reg CF. Regulation CF crowdfunding is anyone can invest in a startup. No longer accredited investors. If you are not qualified as an accredited investor, and if you fall in love with a certain startup that you believe in, and if they offer crowdfunding, regulation CF, you can invest in that, and that's something that you may want to look into. Startup founders, right, which I've mentored, if they have a pretty big community, such as, say, Expert DOJO here, they have a great community, right? Brian, Expert DOJO, can certainly raise capital for Expert DOJO. Through anyone can write Brian a check, $100, $500, $1,000, and he can cap out $5 million per year, okay? So, though for that, startup founders, of course, that has a fee because it's regulated. So you gotta have legal, you gotta have a little bit auditing. That's my specialty, okay? So if anybody's interested in that, especially the 2% female founders, if you believe you have a huge community, now what, if you raise $5 million, you need 1,000 checks, $500. Did I do that math correctly? Right? So if you have 1,000 friends who's willing to give you $500 each, right? You got your $5 million, okay? So that's regulation crowdfunding. So I just wanted to end there.
Alright, we got Eli over here. Gonna take the next question.
Hi, before I ask a question, first of all, my name is Serebryany. I'm a long-time mentor here at the DOJO. And for those of you who are here for the first time, we hope we'll see you again and again. This is a great, great place. I'm going to give a shameless plug, if you don't mind, for one of my clients who's here with me, and somebody who I've made an investment in myself. Melissa Painter is an entrepreneur here. Her company is Breakthrough. They do micro breaks for workplace environment. She's got 2 million users already using the platform. So if any of you are interested in investing in a really great women-owned, women-founded company that's gonna make it big, I encourage you to talk to Melissa before you leave tonight.
I did not put him up to that, and I would crawl under the table if I could right now.
What's the name of the platform again? The name of the platform.
The name of the Breakthrough, BREAKPHRU. And now let me ask my question. What would you say to a founder who is spending all of their time raising money and thinking that that's what they're in business for, is to raise money, instead of focusing on building value for society and creating a product or a service that actually has value, and how they should spend their time between fundraising and growing a business?
I'll take a shot at that first. I think I was here a couple days ago, and I believe Brian and I have a little bit agree to disagree on that aspect, because I believe a CEO of a company, the number one priority is to raise funding, right? To raise capital. I believe Brian has a different perspective, and I respect that. But I wanted to elaborate further, right? Because I've met a lot of founders that I believe their product was great, and they keep scaling and scaling, and they try to do, to a certain extent without raising capital. Number one, I've seen that is that without capital, you scale slower, right? There's this phrase that I believe it was from Mark Zuckerberg, not Steve Jobs, and it was move fast and break things, right? There's the reason why 92% of the men startup founders are hogging up, not 92, 98%, because female founders only get 2%, right? The reason why 98% of all the money in the world goes to male founders, because of that. Move fast and break things. Now, I'm gonna read to you a quote by a female founder. She raised $100 million to scale her company, and I believe she is one of those 2%. And she ran it like a man. Okay, and here is her quote. Listen to the quote carefully. Her name is Ayman, A-B-U-Z-E-I-D. Ayman Abuze? Okay. Iman. Sorry, my apologies. So this is what she said, and I'm quoting her. I learned very quickly that traction isn't what gets the deals done. What gets deals done is an amazing story with a huge vision, with a huge market that you are pursuing, and a very unique insight about how you're going to pursue it. Now that's a man's thinking of move fast and break things. Now, again, I'm the type of CEO that even if I have a large bank account and I'll fund my own projects, but there's no way. It's kind of like, you know, this thing that you hear, 2 heads are better than 1. I say 2 bank accounts are better than 1, okay? 2 effing banking accounts are better than 1. So as a serial entrepreneur, and I run startups, yes, you know, I do use my own money, okay? But at the end of the day, as the CEO, I'm always gonna be out looking for funding, because the more money I have in the bank, the faster I can run. And that's how the boys in Silicon Valley are doing it, is move fast and break things. So that's how I do.
Thank you.
Oh my God, can I also add? Well, I obviously disagree with moving fast and great things, and actually, in fact, I'm talking about this in my book. I literally got this phrase, and I literally said, saying that, this, the world where there are no any business ethics anymore, just got us where we are right now. And as an economist, I have actually rather a gloomy, version of where we are heading to, and I'm basically. I'm totally understanding what you're saying, but in life I'm learning that sometimes, often we have to have a choice. We have to make a choice between what's easy and what's right. And I think guys for breaking things and moving fast, Facebook, Uber, Google, and some other companies, or WeWork, for example. Do they do things right, or do they, do they do things, easy? And quite frankly, as a woman, I don't want to be a man. I don't want to think as a man. I don't want to look as a man. I'm proud to be a woman. And as a woman, I think that we, generally have this bit of nourishing thing, the kindness, and I'm so tired of people quoting this 2% going to, venture capital, going to women. It is such a wrong quote to quote, so let me give you my version, okay? So, VCs are investing in easy scalable startups, right? What are easy scalable startups? Startups in technology. How many women are going to technology? Not too much, when you go to STEAM, basically most of engineers, I've been actually, teaching last year in Moscow at the top engineering school, entrepreneurial finance. That's a school that was in partnership with MIT, and, the only reason that I'm not teaching that right now because of the geopolitical situation, but I've had interaction with engineers. 30-40% of engineers were actually, women there, so I was really surprised. But what happened then, the women, they were in their, 20s. It's basically, most of women between, career and family, most of them, they're choosing families. So there are not too many people, even males, not to mention women, that are willing to work 24/7. And that's also the, one of the reasons that, venture capital, goes to, go to male-driven, teams, because, male are created to work, 24/7. I need my beauty sleep, but maybe, most of us are, right? So that's, that's one thing. Another thing is that, capital goes where the children are. That's another thing we should remember. That's why we don't have flying cars, but we have 5 million applications, or even more. I mean, it's like in Google. No, but seriously, and this is not emotional. I wrote a book about this because I was really frustrated with misconception. Because we get one piece of information, 2%, less than 2%, goes to like filming. Like, well, because most of us, we go to the, fashion business and in PR, in marketing, like, nursing, teaching. This is the companies that are not even on VC radar, and so I honestly don't also want to live in the world where we worship people who just raise $100 million, dollars. How about, worshiping people who actually solve problems? And if you solve the problem, money comes, and I have, examples in my book. I think us as a, as a woman, panel, I would like to suggest a different approach because VCs are becoming irrelevant to the, new basically societies that we are, moving to. I absolutely sure that the old VC model will be gone very soon, just because the age of easy money is over. So we need to come up with new ideas and platforms where basically we don't have to, break things and move fast in a very unethical way. I mean, I couldn't get Uber. I got Uber's application in only I think it was last year when I was in Africa, and just because there was nothing there, but it was Uber. I could not get myself to have Uber up just because I knew the stories, how the company was built, and then there were quite a few suicides, in New York, just because taxi drivers were suddenly losing their job. Anyway, it's complicated. Obviously, what is complicated. I just think that we should, as a woman especially, you should definitely, pay attention and, basically to promote more ethical way as opposed to, let's think as a male in basic company.
Thank you, Victoria. And I know that we have a couple of questions coming up here. I've seen a lot of hands. I'm going to start over here.
Thank you so much. I wanted to add to this conversation and maybe add a bit of a contrast. So I am a woman, I am an engineer. I went through the STEM sort of field. My father is an engineer, so I grew up understanding the power of solving problems through the use of technology. But what she said, I wish I had heard the first time I was an entrepreneur. Because I build out of heart, right? And I solve problems, and I put so much effort into building. But when you don't have the capital, you just cannot compete. I have a really good product. I've been part of the expert DOJO.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that you don't need a capital. You just don't have to think as a man. That's what really catch me. I mean, you as a woman, you are an engineer, and did you have much trouble to raise capital because you were a woman? I mean, lots of women have a difficulty to raise capital because they're not engineers. I think right now is the best time to be a woman. I mean, I know that yes, the universities, they love to find women engineers. They all ask me, really super smart, woman with some engineering, education. So that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes, both of those things can be true at the same time. Yes, I had a harder time raising because I am a woman. Because when I come in and I tell my story, we go to the de-risking component and not thinking and focusing on the opportunity. And I have an accent, and it's all of the ands, right? So I think that had I focused on raising first and going after the money first, it would have changed my entrepreneurial trajectory. And that's why I'm really grateful for this advice. Because then it gives people who build from a heart-centered place the opportunity to compete at the same level and at the same speed as an Uber. Because then you don't even have the opportunity to bring your solution to the market,
Right.
even if it's more ethical.
So I wanted to see, obviously, there are two paths here you can see. she agreed with what I share, and she probably agreed more with Brian, the man here. But here's my perspective to back what I said and what she agreed, is that think about the 98% funding capital pie, right? Women, female founders like you and I and us up here, we only got 2%. Because maybe we're thinking too feminine. And I'm not putting feminine down, I'm a woman. And I founded three companies. And I find it fucking difficult to raise funding, okay? Now maybe the answer is, maybe if we think like a man, because this world is predominantly male dominated. You think like a man, you execute like a man. If they go out and they raise funding as the first choice, which they all do, we can choose that as a woman, right? Just because we choose to raise capital, to scale our company, move fast and break things, that doesn't mean we can't run it like a woman. You get what I'm saying? So that is my point. Just because we move fast and break things, I don't have to be a Mark Zuckerberg. I don't have to be, Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX in the crypto space. Or I don't have to be, what's his name in WeWork who got fired before the IPO went out? Yes, okay? We don't have to be that way, okay? But we can still run it like a man, okay, in a feminine way. That's my approach.
I don't know, again, like running like a man as a feminist, so there is a little bit of contradiction going on in your head, my friend. But that's okay.
I was going to add to the point about having the capital, you're 100% right. I think on the good news front, women have realized that unless we change who controls the dollars, nothing is going to change. So a record number of female-led VCs have launched in the last 18 months. Some are micro, some are up to 100 million. We're getting there, right? It's a little by little process. So that's the good news. The bad news, which is astounding me, I've now read 2 studies that women founders who raise their first round from a female VC are 2 times less likely to get follow-on funding. So we're being penalized because we took money from a female investor, which means it was a charity, associate, or a woman, not on merit, which is shocking. So this is not a good trend. And this is 2 different studies that I read revealing that. So to be practical, go raise money from men and women. Do not just raise money, which is a very sad, but just be smart. Like, you have to act within the reality that we're in, and we can complain and whatever, but the reality is you have to be opportunistic and operate in a way that's going to benefit your vision, your company, your team. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, we have Rob over here.
Yeah, I just want to bring, I think also the question was about how do you run a fundraiser and run a company, and how to not drop the ball, because running a fundraiser is a full-time job while you're still trying to run your company, and that's a big question, and it's very concerning, because either you have to build a team while you're running, or somebody else has to run your fundraiser, and that's very important, because you cannot drop the ball. You cannot drop the ball in sales. That has to continue going on, and otherwise you're not gonna raise the money, and at the same time being a full-time job raising money. So that's just something, as an operator, I understand that this is very challenging.
I honestly still, I'm thinking through, all these discussions. I honestly think still, we live in a society where we put too much pressure into, even this discussion on the gender. Let's talk about competence. That's it. I've been always gender agnostic, all my life. I was hired by the Milken Institute when I thought that I hardly spoke English, but okay, I was good in numbers, I guess, and again, I don't have an accent. I was hired by Dr. Abdullah as a same. I was growing up in a society, right, I'm from Russia. We never really had this oh, this is, man, oh, this is woman. It took me actually a while to understand why the things like, different in America. And I was like, why always like, women keep fighting for rights. I'm not happy to be like, who I am. I didn't know the history when I basically, and I actually write about this in my book. Seriously, it was like a discovery for me that, women in this country didn't have an access to, didn't have an opportunity to have a credit card until like 1975. I was literally shocked. Also, women didn't have, I think it was until, 60s or 70s, couldn't go to engineering schools or something. We had the opposite. We had like, hey, listen, do you want to go to, India? Like my mom was like promoted by the age 30. She was like, head of engineering team or something. She didn't want to because my dad was like, oh, what about kids? She's like, I don't know. So it was like, completely different. Like, I'm listening right now, and I think that is also like, different, like a cultural approach. And again, I still believe that, it's all about competence. I'm sure that if my book was written, was written by someone like Mark Cuban, which he's now going to read, like, the style that I read, by the way. And by the way, I spoke to him. I went to him at the conference. And I had this book, and I, hey, listen, would you like, can you please promote the book? Like, literally, I'm a big fan of yours. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, like, I don't know you, but, good luck, Victoria. And I'm actually talking about this, dialogue in my book. You keep like, but then again, like, for example, I met Dr. Arthur Laffer at the conference, and hey, listen, I would love to work with you, I'm a big fan of you. Yeah, sure, like, go to the office. That things, oh, I'm a woman, and I don't know, and no one really likes me. No, I believe purely in my competence. And let's talk more about competence, how to basically not break things and how to build things, how to solve real problems, how to basically, make this world a little bit better, maybe even a little bit more family instead of like being like, male basically driven, world. So
I wanted to answer this gentleman, and speaking of competence, here's a thought. When speaking of competence, just because you raise money like the boys, I believe you have more competence, because why? When you scale bootstrapping, you have little money to scale. But when you have a successful raise, say 100 million, let's just say she's a man, and she raised 100 million, your competence has to be tenfold to execute all that money to make sure that the money goes in the right places so you can move fast and break things. Now, there isn't no right answer in startup world. You either choose A or you either choose B. I'm not saying I'm right, nor is she wrong, or is she right and I'm wrong, right? But the history has shown 98% funding in Silicon Valley gone to those circles that they believe the jockey move fast and break things. That's all I'm saying. So.
Thank you. Okay, I know that Rob has a burning question over here, and who do you want to direct your question to?
Here. Rob Pellerino, we invest through a family office structure, a little different. I think to the far right is my question. It's with respect to for operations, and it's with respect to passive versus active management. Because sometimes you're going to get involved in a deal that you need to actually trust your team and trust the process, and let things take its course and be more passive. But then sometimes you've got to be active, the roll up sleeves. So could you just speak briefly a little bit about those trends?
So the role of the VC. So the question being, how hands-on as a VC should you be with your founders? It's a really good question, because I would say most VCs write a check and move on. But you can't do that in pre-seed and seed stage like we are. So we're quite hands-on. Our DNA is a little bit different because none of us are investment bankers. We've all operated companies. We've recruited, we've run our own companies, we've been in corporate, we've been in startup. So we come at it from a founder first, and we need to make sure he or she succeeds with the right talent, the right intros into Amazon, Amex, you know, like, so we're very operational. Now, we've made 22 investments, so obviously that becomes a challenge to be too hands-on. But we're in frequent communication. We have an annual offsite. We expect updates from them, so we have pretty solid communication, even if it's not in person. Now, it depends on the size of the fund. You know, we're a small fund, so we really have the liberty to do that. But moving into the next fund, I think what we're going to have to do is operationalize it, templatize, and streamline things a bit more. Right now, we're handling what we can. I think it's a bigger challenge for larger funds, but that's when you see the Andreessens of the world start hiring head of platform, head of community, head of ops, head of tech, you know, so they build out, but they're, you know, multiple billion-dollar funds. And so I think you build infrastructure as you grow the size of your fund to address support of the founders. But most VCs, from what I've observed, don't help the founders. That's just not part of their model. Anyway, part of ours. Anyone else?
Yeah, getting there. I know I had a question here.
Well, this is towards, I mean, really anyway, but I'm a non-technical founder. I've raised about $700,000 in the last 3 years. Been iterating, essentially building a product, like, for the last 3 years. We're finally at a great point to raise another round, and throughout this time, though, I've been heads down. I would consider myself more product-led CEO, but I've also come to find out that I don't think I'm actually the day-to-day operator, the CEO. I'm a CMO, I'm a marketer, I'm a showman. I could be the Adam Newman without being crazy, right? Like, I can show face, go to TechCrunch, you know, be the representative of the company, but not actually run the business. I've just realized that that's not my skill set. So I'm currently on a search for a CEO and using my advisors as helping me, you know, find referrals. But I'm just wondering, I feel like I've been getting a lot of flack from investors that, like, they want their founder to be the CEO. So I was really struggling with that because I'm just trying to, like, humble myself and be like, look, like, I'm just trying to say, like, if you gave me this money, I'd rather put it in someone else's hands that knows how to actually run a company, and I'll be the marketer, I'll be the showman. So, like, what do you, just kind of wondering, what do you think I should do in that situation? Because I'm about to raise like a $2 million round. Yeah, just.
So in health space, I actually see a lot of founders who are not CEOs that bring aboard professional CEOs, and it is accepted because as a founder, you might have different set of talents, right? Like in your case, you're a CMO, and you're probably a very talented CMO. And so, as an angel investor, I'd like to see that you are in the right place. And as a matter of fact, I always ask, what are your not just strengths, but what are the weaknesses? Because I want to understand how you know, what needs to be added to the organization so the organization can be strong.
I was just going to add, I think it's really smart that you're being transparent and not trying to do some sort of bait and switch. But you can also potentially nominate through your advisory network, whatever, an interim CEO, understanding the skill sets that you want to bring, and where, you know, you might have gaps. But I don't think, since you are a founder, you should be the person raising money. And so I don't, you know, if that's the reason they're not investing, I don't know. I would kind of question that then, right? Because you're product led, you are a founder, and I've seen, to your point, I've seen founders who are not like CEO or technical raise the money. So I think it should be feasible.
So my quick advice to that is it backs up what I said a couple days ago, and I think earlier, is what I said was, in your situation, I would keep the CEO title because you're out there raising. Remember what I said? The number one job of a CEO is raise funding. So that's kind of like like what he does. So remember Mark Zuckerberg. Everybody knows Mark Zuckerberg, what you do, but you don't, right? What happened with Mark Zuckerberg? He hired a COO, exactly, Sheryl Sandberg. So my recommendation for this gentleman, if he doesn't like operation, find a Sheryl Sandberg. Make her or him a co-founder, give her or him equity stake, and you pretty much solve the problem. He can still be the CEO because, and he's the founder, because most investors, like, for example, like myself, I like the founder to be the CEO, lead the path, okay, raise capital, and then if he's honest with me like he did, say, Jenny, you know what, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not operation. Great, do you have a Sheryl Sandberg? If he has a Sheryl Sandberg, I'm fine with that. You know, so that's, if I was his mentor, that would be what I would share.
Thank you. And we have one last question that we're going to wrap up with today. And then everyone, feel free to hang around. We've got some wine and just mingle for a while, and we can continue all these good conversations that we've started.
I'm involved with 2 startups right now. They decided to make me CEO of both. So, of course, one of the big questions I have is about crowdfunding, because it used to be in the past that venture capitals, people had an attitude about companies that did equity crowdfunding, but it seems from the attitude that I've seen from you ladies, it seems to have changed. Is that the case, that it would be okay for startups to go for equity crowdfunding?
I'll take that first, real quick. Equity crowdfunding, if you're talking about Reg CF, which I've shared earlier, that's the only legal path, right? Only successful if you have a community. Now, I'm not saying if you don't have a community, you won't be successful. I'm not saying that. The chances will be lesser. Like, for example, I keep using Brian's DOJO. The chances for Brian to be successful out of Reg CF would be much higher than a person who doesn't have Twitter, doesn't have TikTok, doesn't have Instagram, and you barely know 10 people, right? That's my honest answer.
Yeah, I think I'll just add that we call it running crowdfunding campaign, right? And the campaign, not the campaign we are running as politicians, right? When you run a campaign as a politician, you run this campaign 6 or 12 months, 12 months in advance. So if you want to crowdfund, you have to start at least 6 months in advance. And I'm actually writing about this very detailed in my book. I've been actually helping a good friend of mine to basically do crowdfunding, and I'm giving this good example. So the mistake is that you might think about crowdfunding that it's like in eBay. You put your product there, you put your startup, everything is great, and I'm just sitting and checking that whether there are money or not. So you really have to run a campaign, and I even outline some literally metrics in my book. So unless you have at least 2,000 real active followers, I would not even suggest to you to think about that. I think 10,000, maybe more, but really being overly optimistic, which I am obviously overfast in this panel, and I think in the room, because otherwise you won't be able to be either a deputy no investor. So yeah, at least so basically thank you guys for not talking over me. So basically the matrix is that less than 5% of your followers, will be actually supporting you. So just, you can definitely even calculate. I have a good friend of mine who just wants to crowdfund right now a play. And we are literally calculating right now, basically, on average, at least on a Kickstarter, the average, donation is $70. In equity crowdfunding, I think the last number I seen was around 150. So you can basically, run matrix and actually have, some projections and see if you can, make it. But, it's definitely, again, I hate the fact that, like, as you keep talking, and I know this number very well, that, still we see capital, mostly 98%, goes to the, to male-driven companies. But again, I believe that the funding world is changing, that we eventually will come more to the equity crowdfunding, crypto is here, small VCs. And my personal question actually to my panelists, because I sincerely want to know, do you feel that women investors are more loyal to women founders? Like as an angel investor?
What I'm hearing from a lot of founders, I am hearing that sometimes it is helpful and sometimes,
Too much love from women.
I mean, it's definitely moving in the right direction, but I also hear from a lot of founders that it is semi-helpful.
Here's my quick data on that, and ladies, let me know. I believe the data is there are more female solo LPs and GPs within the last 5 or 6 years. The growth of that has gone up, right? But female founders are still stuck at 2%, 7 years in a row. So what does that mean? Even the female founders, venture capitalists or investors, they still don't invest in female founders. That's what
I give here. Thank you.
I think, I could be wrong, but I think the difference is that when you talk about total amount of funding being like the 2% of the 100, and that's, many, many billions, the issue is even though there's now around 15% female, LPs, GPs, it's still smaller, right? So if you think about the percent of the funding, they're writing checks, it's 25K, 100K, they're not writing $20 million checks yet. So until we get to that next phase of the funds growing from a $10 million fund to 100, that's when we'll start to see, I think that's going to shift. So,
I think that's a great note to end this conversation on. I know we're up on time. We're going one last little question, and then we are.
I can speak loud from here. I only have a question of crowdfunding because I have a startup that is more like a B2B, and this is an interesting concept, but I think like crowdfunding doesn't really works well for concepts. It's more better for like B2C. It's easier to solve even if you have a community and engage people. Like, what is your perspective on that?
It's all about following, and with B2B business, with B2B business, it's a little bit more complicated. But I hate to do that, but I have to ask how many followers you have right now.
I have in 10,000 of followers.
On Facebook or LinkedIn or?
I have about 5,000 active users. I have about 30,000 followers.
I mean, the point is can be tuned in the customers.
5,000 on the LinkedIn, about 15,000 on Pinterest, and
the low hanging fruit that basically your followers can they be tuned into your customers. Obviously, that's what basically the idea is. So your followers are basically low fruit, potential customers, and that's basically. So if your potential customers are businesses, maybe that's maybe you should think about different venue. And just one more thing I forgot also to mention. I do think that it's also like the best, or maybe one of the best times to be a family founder in this country, because there are lots of government financed programs and grants and all type of financing that you literally just Google woman founder federal grants or state grants. it's amazing how many person, and I know quite a few also families that basically have grants, which are actually basically free money, like literally free money.
Just real quick, just to answer your question, okay. Regulation crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding, to be honest, it works for any companies under one condition. You have a community, and basically even when you have a community, you still got to quote unquote say. Like, you gotta get the community involved. So don't say, here's the misconception. Don't say, oh, I have this company, B2B, you know, so crowdfunding doesn't work. That's not correct, okay? The correct approach to equity crowdfunding is not what sector your company is in, but how large your community, and as the CEO, how effective your communication with your community. Like, for example, you gotta be like a used car salesman, to be honest with you. By saying, you know, hey, you guys, you know, today I'm gonna give this out. If everybody write me a check for 500, you gotta row your community. That's all, that's all. I mean, again, $5 million you can raise from 1,000 people, each only give you $500. And here's one tiny thing. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, 10,000. So here's one final thing. As regulation crowdfunding kicks up, because again, it was only approved 2021, Kickstarter will die. Because Kickstarter, when somebody gives someone $500, all you have is a price, right? You don't own a stake of that company. Regulation crowdfunding, you never know that $500 you can own a piece of Uber. You get what I'm saying? That's the difference between Kickstarter and regulation crowdfunding. I hope that helps.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much, all panelists today.
The best question, what was the best question? What was the best question, most interesting, most controversial?